coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, welcome along to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday, July 7th. Kevin Brockway sitting in today. Chronic Hoosier's going to join us as well. Plenty to talk about. Well, not plenty as normal like a Monday, Kevin, but there's a lot going on. NBA players are they got to talk about what they want on the back of their jerseys. Steve Buscemi is doing better. Victor Oladipo, Patrick Mahomes, the TBT, lots of different things going on. But how about that contract Patrick Mahomes signed extension? My gosh, $450 million over 10 years. It's nuts. I mean, the last time I saw a contract like that, it reminds me it was Alex Rodriguez, and they had to give him part of the damn team.
I know, yeah, he got paid, and listen, the timing, the timing was right. I mean, if you think about it with Patrick Mahomes, Jim, he is, I believe, the youngest player ever to win a league MVP and a Super Bowl MVP. So to say it's justified, you lock the guy up for 10 years, apparently can go up to $503 million with incentives. You're around $500 million man potentially for a guy that. Listen, he has delivered throughout his early part of his career. Now, you run the risk of injuries. I think of that, $140 million is guaranteed, so he still is going to walk away with a big, chunk of change if he has a career-ending injury tomorrow, which, you hope he doesn't. But it worked out pretty well. But in any case, when you sign these long-term contracts, it may look on the front end like something that is going to be worth a lot of money. But as we know in economics, it might look like a bargain in year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, and year 10 when other quarterbacks are making more money. By then, of course, per season, of course, Mahomes will probably renegotiate.
Yeah, can you imagine? I mean, all right, what are the odds that he's going to go to 10 Super Bowls and win 6 of them? A la Tom Brady. I mean, I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but the odds of him doing that are not high, and that money, to me, that money is crazy. It shows that sports cost too much. It costs the average person too much. That means people are just paying too damn much for sports to go to eat, the hot dogs, the tickets, the luxury suites and all that stuff. They're overpricing people. There's no reason in the world a football player should be worth $450 million, in my opinion. No, there's no athlete that should be worth that. But that's the American way, right?
Well, it's what the market kind of dictates in terms of you've got a salary cap. You've got a certain amount of money, it's how you prioritize your spending. Now, going forward for the Chiefs, I mean, the challenge is going to be to build a team around them and to convince them to defer money during times when, you want to keep or get certain players. I think that's going to be the balancing act going forward is, how much money. But listen, there's money coming in from the TV contracts. I mean, the NFL is king. Let's put it that way. I mean, it has been for the last 2-3 decades, basically. So the money will be coming in, and I think it's, when you look at NFL salaries on board on average compared to other major sports, considering the popularity of the sport, I mean, on average, they still don't do as well as the NBA. They still don't do well as Major League Baseball. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that. You can get into the whole factor that a lot of these players wear helmets and they're not marketable unless you're the quarterbacks. But I think it might be good to see if anyone deserves to be paid, considering the long-term health effects of the sport, the popularity of the sport. Football players deserve their due.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I have no problem with people getting paid. I just think this is exorbitant. I mean, I think this shows that sports cost too much. Which this is not something we didn't already know, but man, I just don't know how you can be able to pay a guy that much. That shows me you're making a lot of money if you can pay one guy that much. I hate it for the everyday fan who used to be able to go to games and enjoy them, and a family of four just can't do that anymore. And here's the reason why: because guys are making $450 million daggone dollars.
The one thing you could say, though, is that a market like Kansas City, which is comparatively a smaller market in a sport like baseball, which has no salary cap, at least a community like Kansas City has the opportunity to pay an athlete this much and keep them. And
surprising, you're right.
I think that that's something to be said for the NFL, and a positive in that, and that you have that competitive balance, and you don't have a situation like in baseball where only a franchise in New York or a franchise in Los Angeles could afford to pay that kind of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. And because we always hear small market teams, and Kansas City is what's considered a small market team. I mean, so the fact that they're able to do that, not only are they able to do that, but they're able to win. Kansas City Royals baseball, I mean, that's a team they kind of remind me of the Cincinnati Reds. They're the same size market, and those teams suffered. But, man, the Royals did it here recently. So Kansas City, they've been a heck of a sports town here of late.
Yeah, no question. And it's a, and I'm sure you've been there. It's a fun city, and it's a kind of in the American heartland, the way Indianapolis is. And I think it's good for the fans in that city to be excited. You've got the franchise quarterback. Kansas City went, almost 30 years, Jim, if you think about it, before Mahomes drafting a quarterback in the first round. It was Todd Blackledge. I don't know if you remember him. And
from Penn State, man.
Yeah, and if you ever saw that, 30 for 30, which is great from Elway to Marino, he was one of the bust quarterbacks. Everyone knocks the Jets for drafting Ken O'Brien ahead of Dan Marino. Well, Kansas City they had the 6th overall pick, and they drafted Todd Blackledge ahead of Dan Marino. And, the New England Patriots drafted Tony Eason ahead of Dan Marino. There are plenty of people that missed on that. But if you take a look at that, so many years Kansas City tried to, sign a free agent or patchwork. You had Joe Montana later in his career, you had Steve Bono. And now, you jump up in the first draft. And Mahomes was kind of like projected as a second-round pick going into the draft, but Kansas City saw something in him, traded up, got him with the 11th overall pick, and the rest is history. He's led him to a Super Bowl, and who knows if he's going to lead him to a few more here before it's all said and done.
Yeah, they certainly would like to see that. I mean, it was a magical run for him last year, but we know especially at the pro level, repeating, we've seen it. It's hard. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Repeating is a very difficult thing to do. But can Kansas City be the new New England? Brady's gone. It could be Kansas City, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we're going to see a run like that from anybody, but we always say that. Every time there's a run of something, when it's over, like, well, we may not ever see that again. Maybe not. We may see it right now with Patrick Mahomes, but it should be fun. More importantly, are we going to get to see NFL football? I think NFL football is going to happen, pretty sure. College football, I still have my doubts about, to be honest with you. I think the NFL will happen just because they are looking at this full steam ahead business-wise. They're going to do what they need to do to get there. That's what my thoughts are right now, but that's just me guessing by the limited information I get.
Well, Jim, I think the one aspect of the NFL compared to college football is the NFL, you could put teams in a bubble a lot easier than in college. College, you've got the campus, you've got the kids. They're going to go out and party on Kirkwood. They're going to go out and do what they want to do. You can have them sign all the pledge forms they want, but they're still going to be interacting with the student body on a regular basis. So the likelihood for infection or to get this virus, I think, is less in the NFL than in college, just because you can contain NFL players better. You can kind of keep them in an environment, and they're professionals, and you can demand for them to do that, as opposed to college, where they're college kids. So I think that aspect of it will be interesting going forward. Right, as we've discussed before, right now you can contain it a lot better. It's summer, the students on campus. What's going to happen in the fall semester when everyone comes back, and how is that going to impact positive tests, players going forward. But right now it's it's kind of interesting because it's a big problem in the South right now. So I know people in the SEC are nervous, but in the Big Ten footprint, I think things look a little more promising here. But do you start a Big Ten football schedule on time and not start an SEC schedule on time? I think those are questions. Or does everyone coordinate at the same time and say, hey, let's play in the spring instead? There's a lot of kind of moving parts here that I think, the Power Five are going to have to figure out, and are they all going to cooperate? Because right now it doesn't look good, I think, in the SEC. Doesn't look great in the ACC. Yeah, there's a lot of Southern schools. Doesn't look good in the Pac-12 because of California's mess.
Something else I've been thinking about is the pandemic it's going to alter, I think, or it can. It has a good opportunity to alter who wins the college football national championship, if there is one, because the home team advantage, it's gone. When you're cutting 100,000 down to 50,000, now that's still loud, but if it's less than that, that home field advantage that some of these teams have enjoyed, that's going to be mitigated somehow this year, I think, somewhat. And that's a big thing. I mean, if you're up in the big house and you're down in the end zone and you're trying to run a play, there's no way you can hear anything. I've been there, I know, but that won't be the case. Same with Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, all these gigantic stadiums where that has been a huge advantage, going to be mitigated some this year. And I think in football, that matters. It does. I mean, I think we've seen that matter. But think there's any chance of that?
No, yeah. Listen, hey, I remember 30 years ago, back in the day when I was a college student, hard to believe it's been that long. We're all getting old, but the enclosed section of the Orange Bowl, Miami playing Arizona, two straight false starts because they couldn't hear, basically, in that section of the end zone, they were allowed 80,000 people in there, in the old Orange Bowl. So yeah, no, like the crowd can create a huge factor with regards to that. And I think it evens it out. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be very interesting when team sports get started up. The NBA, you're in the bubble in Orlando, but even Major League Baseball, when they get started up in these home stadiums without fans or with minimal fans, to see if it has an effect. The one thing you can say is at least you don't have to travel and you don't have the nerves of that. And I think that the travel, I think that's going to be heightened a little bit just because of the nature of the virus and the fact that, players are going to be a little bit on edge traveling, until a vaccine is found. But, in terms of the fans making an impact, Jim, you bring up a good point with that.
And also, will there be, well, we don't know. We got to take a break. Let's go ahead and take that. We'll talk about that when we come back. Chronic Hoosier is going to join us on the program here today too. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Indiana. Indiana's one of those teams I just mentioned. Their first game on the road at Wisconsin. Normally a very, very inhospitable place to play. That could change this year. We got a lot more to get to. Victor Oladipo's out for the season, the TBT. Stay with us. You're listening to Indiana Sports Speed Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com, get complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers right there. We'll be back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway.
Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway sitting in. Chronic Hoosier is going to join us here later on. What was it I was going to talk about when we came back? Man, I forgot already.
Victor Oladipo?
Well, there's one thing. Yeah, Victor Oladipo out. He's not going to participate to continue his rehab, Kevin. Big blow for the Pacers.
No question. And it's interesting because of, I was on some of the Zoom calls last week, and on July 1st, he was kind of talking about, we're going to test this out, yada, yada, and see how things are going to go before we leave to Orlando. And then 2 days later, on a Friday, 4th of July holiday, it was a classic, Friday dump at 3:00, and he basically leaked to the Athletics, Shams Karina that, hey, look, I'm not going to go. I'm just really worried about the knee tendon. He was kind, to be fair, he was kind of hinting at that a few days earlier, that look, this isn't a for certain thing, and I'm going to give it my best shot. But I think the main concern was him, just basically ramping it up again, trying to go back, and the fact that he hadn't been playing 5-on-5. He's a little concerned about the nature of the injury and the amount of time it would take to come back to play an 8-game stretch. And then, who knows, even what the Pacers' hopes in the playoffs would have been with him. Now, he's entering a contract year next year. the cynic could say, hey, look, he's just basically protecting himself for the contract year. But it seems like publicly everything that Kevin Pritchard is saying and his teammates are saying that they're on board with his decision. And he is going to go down in the bubble to support him. Now, that's kind of wasting a roster spot too. You can make the argument, but at least he's going to be a physical presence there. He's not completely bailing on his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't blame him because it's not really worth it. This is such a weird season that, and it's not like the Pacers are looked upon to make this big run and make the NBA Finals. So I don't think that it's worth it for him and for the organization. I think for their future, for his future, he's probably better off just saying, yeah, let's bow out of this. And because what happens if he were to get COVID while he's trying to rehab? It just more add to it. So I think that they're better off making. I think that's the right decision personally.
Well, you have a different view than the esteemed radio voice Dan Dakich, who is kind of drawing parallels to Andrew Luck here and mentioning that he's quitting on the team and he should have tried to give it a go and yada yada. And the fact that he is the franchise player and that they've lofted him to this franchise player staff and he owes the organization to try to give it a shot. But my counter argument to that would be, hey, listen, I think a market like Indianapolis, and we discussed this in segment 1 with Patrick Mahomes. I almost think, in that kind of situation, there has to be a certain amount of catering to the star player in terms of, because you want to get this guy back. You want him to retire in a Patriots uniform. And if you jeopardize it in the short term, you're not seeing the forest in the trees there.
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how it all works out, but we'll look forward to it. Well, I mentioned yesterday Steve Bushey, former Indiana player, the 1981 national championship team, apparently doing better. He's down in Evansville, and we our thoughts and prayers go out to the Bushey family. But I understand that he is awake and doing much better, and we're thinking about him down there. I know we're carried on the ref down there in Evansville. And so Steve Bushey, a big part of that 1981 national championship. Steve Risley, Isaiah Thomas, Whitman, all those names from that team. That was a great team. I know that's before your time here in Bloomington, Kevin, but still one of those great teams of Bob Knight's.
Well, and a lot of those guys were back, obviously for the, Knight's return to Assembly Hall in February, and obviously a really emotional scene with Knight and Isaiah and Randy Whitman and all those great players from that 1981 team, which was is certainly special. Anytime you can cut down the nets at the end of the year, you're going to go down in history, and that was the second of Knight's 3, and that certainly a great collection of players.
Absolutely. The TBT going on now. It's we're a couple of games into this now. I'll be honest with you. We talked about this a minute ago. I turned it on Saturday, and even as sports starved as I am, I was like, that's not that fun. So I found something else to watch that day. But that was two of the lower end teams, none names on there. So I don't want that to hold against me. Remy Abel and Mo Creek, they won their first game for Sideline Cancer. They're up tonight again at 7:00. So the later these early games, there's a lot of you got to wait till the excitement really starts to build. Although there was a game 1 on an alley-oop because of the Elam ending last night or yesterday, I think, or the day before.
Yeah, and a lot of missed 2-footers from big guys, but it was kind of cool to see Fletcher McGee. Remember him in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago? He's out there lofting up 3-pointers, and it's fun seeing some of those names kind of unearthed. That guys that are, hey, look, you're out there, you're trying to compete for $1 million, for the team. How you divide it up, but it's at least it's something to watch. I mean, it's not the prettiest basketball, but then again, you have to kind of maybe lower your expectations a little bit in terms of, even college basketball teams have a level of cohesion, that you don't see here in terms of, the practice time and so forth.
Absolutely. So we'll see how that continues to play out. How long? That's like a 10-day run, I think, right?
Yeah.
And those guys are in their bubble, or they're over in Columbus, Ohio, in their quote unquote bubble. See how that works out for them. That's probably a good litmus test for the NBA. What can the NBA learn from the TBT because of the style of having to be in the bubble?
Yeah, well, for one thing though, they're not in a hotspot state, Ohio, compared to Florida. I mean, that's what's interesting to me about the NBA situation is, a month ago, it seemed like playing in Florida was a good idea. Now not so much. But I remember last week I kind of asked Kevin Pritchard about it, and his response was, well, you have so many protocols inside the bubble. They have about 130-page manual on face cleaning. They feel like it's going to be a really safe, contained place down there. But I know the NBA, they're getting a lot of the testing out of the way in terms of beforehand. But, Malcolm Brogdon is still dealing with COVID, and he's asymptomatic, but he tested positive on June 24th. So who knows, when he's going to be able to come back and join the team in the bubble. And we've seen a number of players in the NBA drop out as well. So it's it's still a dicey situation, and you got to, I think, kind of keep your fingers crossed until the games start July 30th. And the same thing for Major League Baseball too. They're having tons of problems with their testing. The FedEx envelopes didn't get there on time. They're blaming the 4th of July weekend, but to run this operation, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Is it me, or does baseball look like an absolute clown throughout all this? I mean, they look like the Ringling Brothers Circus. Looks like the little car pulling into the middle and 18 guys getting out. That's to me, that has been Major League Baseball through all this. Everybody else, every other league has maintained a very professional order of everything they're doing and going and their direction. Even the NCAA is fast as that is and as difficult as that is, to me, has been outshone as a donkey's ass by Major League Baseball, period. The players, the whole deal. I think they've looked just horrible through this. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't care less about baseball right now.
Well, I think the thing with colleges, the built-in advantages that a lot of colleges have is they have these world-class medical centers at their universities, and particularly the bigger ones, the major research universities. So I think that works in their favor in terms of testing. Like IU, you have IU Health that's right there, and you have world-renowned epidemiologists that are on campus that can kind of evaluate things. So there's something to be said for that on the college level, on the positive. I just think the negative at the college level, as we've discussed, 18 and 21-year-old kids think they're indestructible, and that might not always listen to the guidelines or wear masks. I think that's the hurdle that they have to climb. But the medical facilities in a lot of these colleges, you have them, and the medical resources, which is a positive.
Earlier I was talking about college football, and do you think there's going to be non-conference games where these teams, a lot of times it's these smaller teams traveling to come to a school just to get a paycheck mainly, but all that extra travel that's non-conference, or you think we're going to see non-conference football this year?
Well, let's look at IU's non-conference schedule. The one thing you could say is that, Western Kentucky and Ball State, those are easy trips. Those are bus trips.
But when you compare everybody else, you got to compare everybody. Yeah.
I know Florida is opening with Eastern Washington, so that's like a cross-country trip, right? And IU does have that non-conference.
And it's a state that has been a hot spot from day one, Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, well, now Florida's a hot spot too. So you've got and Florida going to Indiana, go to UConn as well. That's the one game where I think you can kind of cut out. But I think what's going to happen is if the country doesn't make the progress at the beginning of August, I think there's a lot of wait and see here. But I think if the country doesn't make the progress by the beginning of August, you are going to see seasons shortened, and the first thing they're going to eliminate is these non-conference games. And you're going to, they're going to try to make do with a 7 or 8 conference game, schedule in the fall. And then the next step will be, if there's no progress made in September, then they'll probably look at the spring. That's how I see it going.
And I wonder now, since Indiana opens up against Wisconsin, normally you get you get those 3 non-conference games out of the way. You get to kind of loosen up and get things going. Indiana, a couple times in the last few years, has drawn Ohio State to open the season, and now Wisconsin to open the season. Not exactly an advantage for the Hoosiers, who need all the help they can get, especially going on the road to a team like that. Let's say they cancel those non-conference games. Are they going to then move that football game? Because you've got a 2-week gap, maybe a 3-week gap in between conference games that way for Indiana. Because if they play Wisconsin first and then play 3 non-conference games, you're looking at a month in between their next conference game.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's like, do you move? If the schedule gets altered, do you just move Wisconsin? You make Wisconsin your season opener in late September. They could do that too, and they could finagle the schedule that way. I think there are a lot of different directions they could go with that, but it's going to be it'll be a challenge regardless. I mean, I think a lot of people were. Before COVID hit, I think a lot of people were juiced up at the idea of Indiana opening on a Friday night at Wisconsin, prime time, good chance for exposure for your program. Coming off an 8-5 season, your best season since 1993. Wisconsin, losing the number of players they're losing, you're thinking maybe you can go up there and steal a win early in the season. A good time to play a team like that that's lost a lot of their star players, Jonathan Taylor. Now, Wisconsin still has a lot of big boys, though. I mean, I don't think it would be an easy task by any stretch. But now, you go up there and the limited fans, too, at Camp Randall Stadium. I mean, that could have an effect as well. That could make things a little easier for Indiana as well.
Tim, hit us up on the text line. You can do the same, 812-269-6367. He says, if college football plays, do they only I missed that. Play conference games, asking that. Yeah. But he also said at least they have live soccer down there as Louisville City FC opens their season in their new stadium Sunday, which they've won like back-to-back championships. But yeah, you got that going for them. But another question though, Kevin, it comes out of this. If they eliminate the non-conference games and you go to conference games only, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. Everybody else plays 8. Now that is really going to rear its head as far as the championship race. When you got Alabama, they're only going to have to play 8 games, and half of those games are probably like non-conference games basically for them. So that's going to come into play into the playoffs, college football playoffs.
Well, maybe what you do is that you mandate all teams play a 9-game schedule, but you have, like the SEC schools play 8 in one non-conference game. The way some of the SEC schedules are, there are a lot of rivalry games at the end of the season. You have South Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, where you have those built-in rivalries that you play around Thanksgiving that are cross-conference games. So you could do it that way theoretically, and make now a school like Alabama that plays Auburn, that has their natural rival in conference, they might play that silly directional school that they play every year as the 9th game, and then they'll have an inherent advantage in playing like Southwest Arkansas State or something.
Yeah, but it's going to be everybody, because the Big Ten is the only school that plays 9. I guess the only other thing, you can't do that. It's like telling a jury, I'll disregard that. You didn't hear the fact that he killed his wife. Just ignore that. So they've got to make it equitable. And we've talked about this being a problem before, but at least before they had other games they were playing, albeit not as strong because they were non-conference games. Well, they don't have that. So now you're going to have a Big Ten conference that plays 9 conference games, and you're going to have to put up against teams that they're only having to play 8. that aren't being tested as much. And so there's that disadvantage, I think, will definitely show its head this year if they don't make a compromising change for that.
By the way, Jim, I just looked this up. A little correction: the Big 12 does also play non-conference games. So
really,
did not know that. Big 10, yeah, because of the fact that remember they went down to 10 schools, so it's a complete round robin now in the Big 12, which is kind of crazy. You think the Big 12 has 10 teams and the Big 10 has 14 teams, right? It's the way that everything is just kind of screwy in sports in 2020, but it's. You could adjust, the other thing the Big 10 and the Big 12 could do is just adjust to 8 conference games too, or play an 8-game schedule. If you're only playing an 8-game schedule.
Yeah, that's not going to.
You could do that as well.
They've already said that will not happen. They're not going backwards.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about for this season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just for this season, this exception.
You got to take a quick break. Chronic Hoosier coming up next. Looking forward to his weekly visit. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage of Indiana athletics coverage. We're back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
Well, I was raised up beneath the shade of a Georgia pine, and that's home, sweet tea pecan.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Oh, he's not. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. And you know what that means. Joined now by a good friend, Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how have you been, man?
Doing well, man. Happy to be back.
On vacation, you got to recharge the batteries, man. And especially what a year that the batteries may need recharging of this year. I hope that the family and you guys had a blast and got all that done.
You know, it's been a great time. It's been great to get a little bit of a respite. It's a little weird, you know, going someplace, especially a resort town, and not doing a dang thing, man. I mean, honestly, you know, not going out to restaurants, shops, you know, some of the popular attractions locally, just trying to keep it low key and safe. Made several trips down to Publix and the liquor store right around the corner. But other than that, just a lot of surf sand and a whole lot of sun. Man, I'm smoked.
I can't think of a year more where it's more needed for all of us, but I'm glad that you guys got to get that in. And now we head back. We've been talking all morning about different things. Kevin Brockway is here with us today, but football, where they're, you know, I started talking about, you know, football, Chronic, because we're not going to have the people in the stands, at least not nearly at the levels. This is going to help some teams. We're going to see some upsets, I think, because of that. Because when you lose, when you're in the big house or at the shoe or all that, man, that noise is beyond comprehension if you haven't experienced it. But that's not going to be there for a lot of these places. And I think it's going to give a lot of teams like in Indiana, at Wisconsin per se, an opportunity that they normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's certainly going to neutralize a lot of home court advantages, or home field advantages, I guess, in the case of football. But you know, as we started to see across the European soccer leagues, it's absolutely eerie to see games being played in these completely empty stadiums where you normally have the crowd noise and the energy that the players feed off of. But also, you know, that can disrupt visiting teams, particularly in football. You know, you've got to call plays at the line of scrimmage, and you can't hear over 110,000 people at the big house or at the shoe, or Happy Valley for that matter, or up at Wisconsin. It's certainly going to take away a little bit of the bite of some of the road games. You know, I guess that's also assuming that you make it to that point in the schedule. Right now, it seems like all systems are go, but it certainly seems to be touch and go on a day-by-day basis as we look around the country. Ivy League starting to signal that perhaps they may move fall sports back into the spring. I'd be real curious to see exactly what they decide here tomorrow. I believe that announcement comes out, and if that's not perhaps the first domino to fall as schools all around the country are, you know, trying to navigate this really, really fluid situation with the virus, and just how exactly that's going to impact if and when kids come back, and if and when they're allowed to compete, and if and when fans are allowed to attend. Right now, last I heard, IU shooting somewhere in the 10 to 15,000 target attendance in Memorial in order to maintain some semblance of social distancing, priority being given to students and priority points owners, season ticket holders. So still haven't yet seen a plan for that, but that's not really uncommon right now. You know, we're still waiting to figure out what the community schools reopening plan is going to look like and how all that's going to work. So I know everybody's clamoring for a return to it, but as all these administrators are trying to navigate these uncharted waters, really, it really is day to day, week to week, as far as what even next week's going to look like. So be real curious to see how all that shakes out, but also in the event that we get there, how that ultimately changes the dynamics of the home and aways.
Yeah, and then you think about the actual towns, how this stuff. I mean, you think college towns like Bloomington, like Ann Arbor, Columbus is a bigger town, but it's still a college town. But those Saturdays are so special in places like that because they're smaller and everybody comes there and they're tailgating, and that's not going to be the case this year. That's going to be a big loss. I mean, and these towns have already lost so much, but this is going to be another impact if we don't. Well, we're not going to have that many people, so it's definitely going to impact these cities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I would not be surprised. Actually, I'd virtually guarantee tailgate fields are going to be closed this season. With the type of attendance that they're kicking around right now, you can pretty much fit that type of crowd. The paved parking spaces immediately around the athletic complex on 17th. So it's going to be a huge, huge loss for the community as far as the revenue it brings in, the visitors that come into town for game day. Now, on the flip side of that, I've already had some conversations with friends talking about what do our game day situations look like for those that may not have tickets available. To them, that talk about tailgate parties, driveway watch parties, things of that nature. So it's going to be a seismic shift in the way in which a lot of fans and spectators experience the games, I think, going forward. And, right now the big question as well is not just whether they pull it off, but how does that impact long term? You're looking at an industry that's already seen, declining attendance, declining gate revenues as more and more people enjoy the games from their HD setups at home. That's already been moving away from a lot of these programs here for some time. And I think a lot of the administrators are highly cautious of the fact that this may have a longer term lasting impact on that revenue stream that they've relied on for their entire existence, basically.
And from a fan standpoint, whether it's probably basketball or football, at least in Bloomington, you're probably going to have to be a season ticket holder to even have a shot of getting into seeing these games.
No, unquestionably, and it's not just season ticket holder. You're gonna want to be bumping up the story as much as you can if you think you're going to get a shot at the 10,000, 15,000 ticket allotment. No differently than what everybody's experiencing right now, 500 for that matter. It's really going to be a lot of jockeying, trying to figure out who gets the privilege of that ticket license in order to come into the games, because as they start cutting capacity, somebody's going to be the odd man out. There's going to be a lot of somebody's actually that are odd man out. So if you were thinking about making a tax deductible donation, now's probably a good time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then fortunately, these games will be on TV. But then there's things like the Indianapolis 500 that we know is postponed until later on. That they still had the blackout going. I really don't understand that, Chronic. They're blacking out Indianapolis and they're reducing it. And I'm like, man, and this is a year that I think that eventually they're going to let it go. They're just doing it now to ensure that they get as many people as possible, because even 50% at IMS, that's a lot of stinking people. I mean, if you base it on the 300,000 that was at the 100th running, that's still 175,000 people. I don't know that 175,000 people are going to show up this year.
Count me and my family out this year, to be totally honest with you. And I've missed a total of 7 500s since I've been alive, 3 of which happened during my toddler years before I was old enough to go with my family. But, my dad's high risk. He's a cancer survivor. He's got heart disease. He's in good shape, but he's 70 years old this year. And as much as we love, and I mean it goes to the core of my youth, of my adulthood for that matter, something that we've now passed on to my kids. One of the most cherished times of the year is going to the track with the whole family, and just the experience of May in Indianapolis. We talked about it, and it just doesn't seem viable. 50% capacity, every other seat fill, you're still talking about 2 feet between people in the grandstands, and that's not within the guidelines for recommended distancing. So we had to make the decision to pass on it, as Penske and his group have announced plans for what it's going to look like here if and when they ultimately do run it. Fortunately, a lot of folks down here in 812, we at least not here in Bloomington, but where my parents live, they're on that Louisville TV package, man. So they're not subject to the blackout. So we've decided this year we're going to go down to the farm and we'll just watch it and experience it that way. But I don't know that you're going to see, and this is a sport that particularly IMS here, they've struggled for years to retain their relevance in the sports entertainment market. And while they've had a strong resurgence in years of late, especially since the 100th running, this is going to be a real tough one for them to put together the type of numbers that I think they're anticipating. And obviously, Roger Penske's made a huge investment in the series, a huge investment in the facility. I think he's going to ultimately be a great steward. But there's a piece of me that wonders if perhaps they're not putting the cart before the horse here. It's going to be hard to maintain those fans if you're getting them sick this year. So hopefully there's a safe plan in place where everybody can enjoy it to the best of the capacity of availability. And let's all return to this once this thing's said and done.
Yeah, and I know we don't talk about NASCAR a lot on here. No, I enjoy it very much. But how about your boy Chase Briscoe from down the road here at Mitchell? He's won 5 times on the Xfinity circuit, which is basically AAA baseball. There's no way he's not in Cup Series next year. But, man, he's about to set a record with wins in his first number of races. I think he's only run like 14 races or something, and he's won 5 times. He's won at Darlington. He's won at Talladega. He's won at Indianapolis. I mean, he's got Talladega, but he's got some big-time wins under his belt, and it's just a kid from down the road in Mitchell.
Oh, man, it's one of the coolest things growing up in Indiana. It's kind of like watching basketball players work their way up through the ranks. All the kids around here that cut their teeth on Indiana dirt, and just the insane talent that we produce. Whether it be round ball or racing for that matter, no different than Brian Clausen, not that many years ago as well, and another local kid that we've been able to watch come up, just have tremendous success, just unlimited potential. I totally agree. It's going to be hard to imagine him not racing in the Cup Series team here in the next year or two, just based off the incredible success he's already had. And this is one of those guys, we watch him race midgets, and to work his way all the way up as quickly as he's worked his way up. Just one of a number of local talents that I think you can expect to see in the big show here in the coming years.
It's a very cool stuff. What's coming up next for Chronic?
Just trying to get by, brother. Trying to get by. It's, like I said, man, it's really been week to week. We just got the email from Monroe County School Corporation, and they're asking everybody, pick what type of learning you want your kid to have next year. I'm like, well, show me a damn plan what learning's going to look like in the school. And it's I think everybody's just kind of playing wait and see right now to see where things go. So we're just trying to do it week by week, trying to keep the kids healthy, happy, trying to keep them out from killing each other. I'm trying to keep myself from getting sun poisoning right now. But other than that, man, just trying to enjoy every minute of it. One thing always seems to happen is, once July 4th comes, everything goes into warp speed summertime wise. Before you know it, everybody's back in school and we're headlong into fall. So trying to enjoy every day of the summer that we got here.
Well, brother, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you every week. We love to talk with you and look forward to doing it next week as well. I hope you have a great week and enjoy it. Go relax.
I'm looking forward to it. And I'll tell you what, man, I hope everybody in Bloomington is able to keep their wits about them, keep their heads, keep cool. As Coach Allen says, man, let's just love each other and let's get through this. There's some scary stuff happening around town. And if any town in Indiana is capable of overcoming it, finding some common ground and a path forward, I know it's going to be Bloomington, but these are certainly challenging times right now. So my thoughts are with everybody that's trying to get through this thing.
Better words could not be said. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you. Look forward to it again next week. There he is. Chronic Hoosier joined us here on, as always. I love talking to him. Yeah. And it's another thing, Kevin, I think about. We could be heading towards a gluttony. We're starving for sports now. But if this stuff gets canceled in the fall and you move everything to the spring, you just doubled everything because you've already got all the spring sports going on. You'll have the winter sports ending and then implementing the fall sports that didn't happen. I mean, it could go from easily managing or not easily managing this thing, but working to managing to now when you have 3 times as much stuff dumped on you, how's that? That's going to be a difficult thing to manage.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, how do you set up the schedule and, without the other sports conflicting and, tripping over one another. But say if football gets moved to the spring, those Saturdays that are normally reserved for basketball, how do you handle it you move football to Sunday and then that conflicts with women's basketball? Do you do more Friday night games and do it that way. You have Friday night basketball followed by Saturday football. It'll be an interesting and curious experiment if football gets pushed back to the spring, which could happen. I mean, I'm looking at the COVID numbers today, and it looks like the curve nationally starting to go back down a little bit, but you're still at 45,000 new cases. So there's still a long way to go.
Absolutely. It certainly is. And I hope we get there. I mean, I want to have football in the fall. Everybody does, but I want to have everything. Like I've talked about before, I've got a daughter in high school that plays soccer, and there's all kinds of kids out there. Man, I can imagine being a senior in high school and losing a senior season of sport. That's something that you just would never forget. And I don't want to see any of those kids go through that. So hopefully we can massage this, get through it all. And until then, I hope you go out and you do something nice for somebody, say something nice to somebody today. Let's make it a better world. Appreciate Kevin today for joining us. Always Chronic Hoosier for joining us as well. For Jimmy, I'm Jim Coyle. Until tomorrow, I think Bob Kravitz will be with us tomorrow. Ernie Thompson later on in the week, so stay tuned to Indiana Sports Beat. We're back again tomorrow from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Until then, go out and have yourself a great day. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.